Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be looking at Ethereum once again. We have been putting a lot of Ethereum videos out as of recent, um, due to the price action of this asset. Um, this is what we've been waiting for. This is, you know, uh, can't get it to be more beautiful as a setup. And so, just to recap, and by the way, Ethereum did break $4,300. We worked up as high as $4,400 on Poloniex, which is quite impressive. But we're looking at the Ether Bitcoin ratio, and so we have it on the weekly chart. And what do we see here? Well, we first saw at the beginning, before we broke out, um, Ethereum coiling in price, right? We saw the bottom here, and then three tops, two tops, potentially you can argue that third didn't quite make it up to the resistance line. Came straight down and rode this for support for a couple of months. Came back up in the summer of 2020, rejected, came back down in the winter before 2021, held it wick down, held it as support, and in Q1 we broke out, back tested it from February to March, right? So January was the move, February, March was the retracement. Holding this as support now. The line that was resistance three times in the macro price of Ether Bitcoin since 2017 is now support. And ever since the end of March, we've been trending up, breaking out, creating a higher high, so on and so forth. And essentially just reaching for the stars at this point. We passed the potential resistance that we thought was going to happen, or at least I thought, at 0.05, 0.06, and we literally cut through that like butter. And the explanation for that, folks, is well, momentum. We can look at, and I have resistance lines drawn. Everyone has these lines drawn, maybe not to these price levels, but they have them somewhere. And we always talk about potential resistance and supports, but the caveat is that Ethereum doesn't necessarily have to respect those, and in fact, it does the it does the opposite apparently. So Ethereum doesn't pick and choose. Um, It just does. And so now this is where we are. We're at 0.0762 Bitcoin. Okay. We haven't been at these levels since since June of 2018. Or sorry, May of 2018. Oddly enough, it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years since we've been at these valuations. It's been a long time coming. And so now it's, well, when is it going to slow down? When is it going to stop? Momentum is a hell of a thing. It's hard to stop a train when it's already going on the track. Someone standing in front of it's not going to stop it. A large animal isn't going to stop it. We're going to need some kind of large structure, a mountain, to stop it. That mountain is going to be Bitcoin, I would argue. Um, the other scenario would be that the train just starts slowing down. It's running out of coal to fuel the engine, and so now we're going to start stalling. The thing is, we don't exactly know when that's going to happen. We know that it will happen. We just don't know when. And so the key takeaway, I think, when navigating any market is to sell in strength, no matter as it keeps on increasing in value, right? So I have been selling my Ethereum piecemeal, and the higher we go in price, the larger the set sale is going to be. So the sell order that I make at 0.038, for example, is going to be smaller than the sell order in the amount of Ethereum. Okay, we're not talking about US dollars, but the amount of Ethereum that I'm selling. So this could be one Ethereum, and then here at 0.07 is going to be three Ethereum. So, and that's how I navigate the market. I ensure that I take profits, even though I might not be hitting the top exactly. Um, but I insure the profits, and it goes back into either Bitcoin or the stable coins, or an altcoin that I find is undervalued at the moment. However, at this point in time, it's very hard to see, what coins are really undervalued, quote unquote, in the market right now. So currently, it's going back into Bitcoin, and the uh, not great example, but one example of an asset that I've completely liquidated would have been VeChain and its valuations against Ethereum. While it rose, I was selling on the way up. Okay, I think my last sell was at 7,500 GUI, the fraction of it in Ethereum, and then it pumped up to even higher highs, obviously, and of course it would, and then we've retraced it back. So in hindsight, obviously I could have held everything and waited for this, but we didn't, definitively know that was going to happen. And I understand that I can't predict the market that uh, accuracy. No one can. And so I embrace it and say, you know what? I will lock in my profits. I'll sell my VeChain back into Ethereum on the way up. And so now now looking at it, uh, I believe my average price range would have been maybe 60, 70, 6,000 Gwei, I would say, because the top sell was my largest sell, so I didn't necessarily average my cost basis in Ethereum, but we're looking around that level, and so now we're below it. So technically, I won out. Even though I didn't sell at the top, I still came out okay, and with profit. And I think that's the important part. When we looked at VeChain on April 12th, we thought it was going to the moon and nothing stopping it. And at the moment right now, we're saying the same thing with Ethereum. Look at this. Look at this weekly move. Ever since March, or April, beginning of April, it just doesn't seem like it's going to stop, but it will. We just don't know when. So there are a few things that I see that could be the start of that, but we can't be so for sure. The next point of resistance would be point zero 0.08. This peak here, in May of 2018, is as high as we've got, in 20, in that month, and so that would be the next local top that we'd be looking to break. And so we're very close, right? Um, we're talking about like a less than 10% move. Yeah, we're looking at like a 9-8% move, additional move on Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and we're at that level. And if we keep printing days like today where we're up about 3%, 3.5%, we'll be there in 3 days. We'd be there by the end of the week. And that isn't to say that we will. I'm just describing and painting a picture of how close we are to that level. The next level of that would be point one, which would be the next local high, for Ethereum Bitcoin. And these two lines here is what I'm focusing on right now, um, and seeing how far we get. Uh, Having said that, there these are two lines on a chart. They don't have to be respected. Um, we can anticipate that they might be expected, and in consideration of how far we've come, that could be taken into consideration. Another one would be the RSI, and we don't usually check the RSI on the Ethereum chart, but we are moving up. We're at 83.03. The peaks, okay, so we're talking about June 12th, 2017. We're at 86.76. The second peak was 87.29. The peak in 2016 was 89.71. And the RSI peak in February 2016 was 83.86. So we usually see around the high 80s a pullback, at least on the Ethereum chart. And if we line it up, so if I'm lining up the bottom to what the peak was in February 2016, and I'm going to make the top of the rectangle be peaking out at the 2016 secondary peak at 89.71. So, but in the 80s. And so when we look at the RSI now, we're at 83. Okay, we're at 83. We're not there yet, but you can see that we're about to poke it in. We're about to get into the band. Um, and so if Ethereum continues to push on incredible numbers even with like a 3% move each day, okay, that's 21% in a week. That's 84% in a month if we just push in 3% every day. Obviously, it won't. There will be retracements. It's not as simple as that. But making it that simple, you start to realize how crazy that would be on a monthly scale, right? 84% in a month for Ether Bitcoin, pretty impressive. For the month in the month alone of May, we've already moved up 58%. Again, incredible moves. So on the weekly, when we see this, if it continues to push up these numbers, the RSI is going to continue to rise, and we're going to hit 86. And 86 is around the ballpark range of a retracement against Bitcoin. So when we look at these peaks, we can see. Let's take a look at the 2016. So we see that the peak, week of February 8th, we moved up 64%. Following week, we retraced 18%. And then that was that. It bottomed out, came back up, pushed into a new higher level on the Ether Bitcoin chart, and then ultimately came back down. 2017 peak, March 2017. We moved up and we retraced, roughly 34% in a span of 4 or 5 weeks. We retraced about 34%, and then on the 5th week we moved up. That brought the RSI from 86 down to 66, or in the 60s roughly, and then moved back up in 12th of June of 2017 back to 86, and then we retraced down. So we can expect, as we could see with Ethereum, as we also saw with Bitcoin, right? We also talked about these RSI peaks in the high 80s, or the 90s, sorry. That we usually get a double peak, 2 peaks on the RSI. Doesn't always look as clean, but they're there. So if we anticipate the same thing for Ether Bitcoin, we could see a potential retracement once Ether Bitcoin's RSI gets into this band. So again, we know that the retracement's going to happen. We just don't know when. What these resistance lines show, what the RSI shows, can maybe help us in getting a better understanding on where that retracement might be. Again, we don't know when. I can't put a date on it. It's whenever Ethereum decides to get to this level. If it's slower, then the RSI is not going to be as quick, because the RSI takes into account time as well. But the price, we can at least have some kind of resemblance on an understanding of that. And the RSI also helps us in short-term volatility, on weekly volatility of what is overbought or oversold. And currently right now for Ether Bitcoin, we're getting into overbought territory, just barely. If we have another week like we had today, this week, so when we look at last week we closed at 79.98. If we have another week like we had this week, then we would be at the 86 territory roughly, and then that would be a cause of concern. It wouldn't make me immediately sell my Ethereum, but it's one thing to keep in mind of, okay, the party, I think, for Ethereum is coming to a close. Maybe, we don't know yet. We might get a retracement after that, and then following that up with another RSI top down the line, much like how we saw here in 2016 and in 2017. But folks, that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.